Dr. Robert Glover, welcome to the show.
All right. I just had double checked that the recording was starting. There's usually a countdown.
Oh, is there? I turned the countdown off.
I always double check that because believe me, I've been on a call or two where we go, whoops, forgot to start the recorder. So I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Good to be with you.
Yeah, good to have you. So tell me, what is a nice guy?
Nice guy, as I define it in my book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, is a man, young man, older man, doesn't matter, who at a very young age inaccurately internalized emotional belief that they're not okay just as they are. And we can talk more about how that happens in children. But because of that emotional belief, I'm not okay just as I am, I'm not good enough, nice guys try to do two things. First is they try to become what they think other people want them to be, so they'll be liked and loved and get their needs met. Second thing that nice guys do is they try to hide anything about themselves that might get a negative reaction from other people. So they'll hide their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions, their sexuality, their wants, their needs. And so nice guys are fundamentally chameleons, trying to make a good impression and trying to avoid doing anything that's going to get a negative response. So unfortunately, that makes us nice guys, even though we may be really good people and really have best of intentions, it makes us pretty inauthentic because there's no real you in there. There's that you trying to become what you think other people want you to be. And it makes us fairly fundamentally dishonest because we're never really saying what we think, feel, want. We're always kind of measuring which way is the wind blowing. Am I doing this okay? So there's a nutshell of the nice guy as I define him.
And talk to me about covert contracts, because I think this is super fundamental to what they do. Like that they don't speak the clear with clear expectations. And one of those famous quotes about unspoken expectations of premeditated resentments, I think maps on quite nicely to what the nice guy does.
Okay, so if I was to pick up and read No More Mr. Nice Guy, I know my number one takeaway would be the covert contracts because that was really one of the most, for me, impactful things that came to me while I was working on my own nice guy syndrome and then later writing the book. And that quote that you gave of unexpressed expectations are
So unspoken expectations of premeditated resentments.
resentments. That's by Neil Strauss, who wrote the book The Game and the Truth. And when first time I heard that quote, I thought, that's perfect. That just totally nails the covert contracts. And the covert contracts are how nice guys operate in the world. It's how they try to get their needs met. It's how they try to be loved and liked. Is how they manipulate people and situations around them because of their sense of helplessness and insecurity, and due to their own internal conditioning that it's not okay for them to have wants and needs. And going back to that internalized part, they're not good enough. So the three basic covert contracts that nice guys tend to use, and probably all nice guys use them in a little bit different ways, but the three basic ones I see the most often. The first one is that if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved. And in terms of sex, the women I want to have sex with will want to have sex with me. So this is nice guys again trying to become what we think other people want them to be, hiding anything, trying to be that good guy, get approval, external validation. And how that often manifests in relationship is through what I call nice guy seduction. And nice guy seduction is just a big covert contract. I'll do nice things for you. I'll listen to you talk about your problems. I'll fix things. I'll solve things. I'll pay for things. I'll do whatever it takes to be different than the bad men you've had in your life. Then you'll like me, you'll love me, and you'll want to be my girlfriend and want to have sex with me. So there's one of the covert contracts. If I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved. Second one is if I read your mind and meet your needs without you having to ask, then you'll read my mind and meet my needs without me having to ask. Now, all of these covert contracts don't work. None of them work for various reasons. But in this case, I really can't read your mind. I really don't know what you need and want. I can make a good guess at it. But really, what I'm doing, I'm giving to you what I want to give to you so that you'll like me and love me, right? And so that you'll approve of me and value me and do nice things for me. Now, the truth is, you can't read my mind either. And nice guys, unfortunately, are not actually very good at getting their needs met, at letting people give to them, or being very good receivers. But we think this should work. I give all this to you. You should appreciate me. You should love me. You should give back to me. And then the third covert contract is if I do everything right, then I will have a smooth, problem free life. Now, number one, I mean, who does everything right? And who even gets to vote on that? But the nice guy, he's the referee, the scorekeeper. He's got the whole scoreboard in his house, his apartment. Look at all the good things I do, all the things I do right. And then we believe we have this contract with the world, with women, with life, that then I should have a smooth, problem free life. Nothing should ever go wrong. I shouldn't get sick. I shouldn't get an accident. I shouldn't lose money investing in crypto. I shouldn't get fired from the job. I shouldn't get dumped. I shouldn't get my heart broken. Whatever, my refrigerator shouldn't break down. We think if we do everything right, we'll have a smooth, problem free life. But life is not smooth and problem free. Life is chaotic by nature. So what happens for nice guys while they're living by these covert contracts? They're all manipulative in nature because they're giving, hoping to get something back. They're unspoken. They're often unconscious, even to the nice guy himself or nice girl herself. I've dated a few nice girls in my time, and nobody else knows those covert contracts exist. If I have a covert contract with you, you don't know that it exists. I mean, you and I have a very overt contract. You sent me an email and said, I'd like you to come on my podcast. I did a little bit of research. I agreed to come on your podcast. We set up a time that we would meet. You'll post it on your media, and then I'll repost it. All very overt, right? Nothing covert, nothing hidden, no unexpressed expectations, and therefore no premeditated resentments. And this is one way I tell nice guys that you can tell if you're living by covert contracts. You have a lot of resentments. You feel victimized. You feel done to. You feel like it's never your turn, that you give so much more than you get. You get frustrated, again, resentful, passive aggressive, even rageful at times because of your covert contracts not being met in the way that you expect them to.
And what are the environmental conditions that forge the operating system of a nice guy?
That probably we could write a whole book about that. Um,
Or the main ones?
there's so many things. Yeah, let's hit on the
Yeah,
top level ones.
yeah.
I'd say number one might even be temperament. Um, I see myself. Now, I may not be accurate. People that know me might not describe me this way, but I see myself as pretty easygoing, pretty flexible, pretty resilient. I've actually had to get better in my lifetime at actually getting more demanding, or having more, asserting myself more, because I was kind of always one of those go along to get along kind of people. um, my mother, bless her soul, used to tell the women I was dating, Bobby never did like conflict when he was little. And I'm always thinking, who the hell likes conflict? I mean, why does that make me strange? But I tend to be attracted to women who love to fight and who love drama. So I know there are some people out there who like conflict. I tell my wife that all the time. Oh, you love to fight. No, I don't. Let's fight about it. She had surgery a few years ago, a couple years ago, and then after surgery, she was like, really laying low and just taking it easy and not moving around much. And then I heard her at the kitchen table getting into an argument with my stepson, her son, and I thought, oh, she's feeling better again. She's fighting. So that's my temperament. I'm not the one who likes to fight. I'm kind of like, can't we just have a rational discussion about this and solve it and fix the problem and move on? I mean, that's me. So a lot of times the nice guy, that's just their temperament. We're not aggressive by nature. We are often kind of a go along, get along kind of person, kind of go with the flow. And that's fine. I mean, that can be a fine thing. Now, other things that contribute to the nice guy syndrome, it can be various things. I know our relationship with our fathers play into that. When I first started working with nice guys, a lot of men reported not being close to their fathers. Dad was either absent, divorced, or angry, or abusive, or addictive. And a lot of nice guys I worked with and like me, made a very conscious decision to be different from our fathers. So we were often disconnected from other men. Often the mother issues that nice guys have, they can go one of two ways. One is either they had a very controlling, dominating mother, and they either learned that they couldn't please her, so they quit trying, or they tried all the time by becoming perfectionistic. Or it's not unusual for nice guys to report having mothers that were had mood disorders or that were impulsive or couldn't do relationships very well. As a young boy, he thought he had to rescue mom, protect her, be there for her, fix her, solve her sadness, things like that. So the mom issue can play into it in various ways. Educational system, I think, can play into it. Even when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy over 25 years ago, there are already strong patterns where boys are kind of just crammed into an educational system. I don't know how it is where you are in Australia, but in America, where from kindergarten through sixth grade, I only had one male teacher. And so for a lot of young boys, just getting from second to third grade not only means learning your reading, writing, and arithmetic, but how to please a woman. And then if you add to that, and then even nowadays it's gotten worse where, little boys come home from school and asking their parents, what's toxic masculine? Am I bad because I'm a boy? Where there's these messages that everything boys do is wrong or bad. And school systems are really set up to help girls succeed, not really to help boys succeed. And so often, boys just grow up thinking, "Oh, there's something wrong with me. I better hide those things about me that are wrong or that are bad or make me like the bad men out there, the toxic men, the patriarchal men." So a lot of nice guys try to hide that. I think social media has really played into it in recent years, where I think social media in general, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, have a very feminizing effect on men, where you're just caught up on just scrolling and doing this. Not You're not really doing anything. Now everything gets pushed to you, that's very feminizing. Everything's done for you. Your porn gets pushed to you, your information gets pushed to you, your Uber Eats brings your food to you. There's nothing that really supports men to be more in their masculine and be penetrating the world. They're being penetrated. And when you get caught up in likes and follows and this and that, that's all very feminine. It's very externally seeking an external validation. Even trying to become like an Instagram influencer can have a very feminizing impact. It's like, oh, I want to get a lot of likes and a lot of follows and a lot of, reposts and all of that stuff. And so there's just a whole lot of things that go on that when I first published No More Mr. Nice Guy almost 25 years ago, people said, well, what percentage of men out there do I think are nice guys? And I said, well, I can't speak for the whole world. Since then time, I've traveled quite a bit of the world, including Australia just a few months ago. And there are indeed nice guys everywhere. I get emails from men all over the world who've read my book or seen my videos. And I would have said 25 years ago that maybe a third of the population would qualify as nice guys. I'd say, especially now with millennials and Gen Z, people in your age bracket, that's maybe 50% or more. You guys even have a word for the nice guys. You call them simps. And it's just, yeah, he's such a simp. So I think the number of nice guys has expanded, mostly because of the social dynamics around social media, around the whole toxic masculine and the school systems. And one interesting shift, like I said, when I first started working with nice guys who would have been around my age 25, 30 years ago, they often, like I said, reported not being closer connected to their fathers, not having a trusting relationship or bonded relationship with dad. Nowadays, a lot of the guys I talk to, like around your age, they tell me my dad is a nice guy. And all he taught me was not to piss off my mother because that's what he was trying really hard to do. So nowadays, a lot of Gen Zs have been raised by nice guys who taught them be passive, don't rock the boat, don't make your mom mad, go along to get along. Because, as a kid, if you got mom mad, then dad had to deal with a pissed off wife. So, don't get mom mad because he was such a
Mm.
nice guy. So there's a few of the factors that I see can play in to this pattern of nice guy syndrome.
And talk to me about the shame that sits at the heart of the nice guy and his fear of rejection.
Well, I mentioned earlier that nice guy syndrome was an inaccurately internalized emotional belief that typically begins in childhood. Now, the concept of shame, it can be put it this way. When I was first introduced to the concept, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I remember I was in my 30s, I already had a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, and I'd never really heard of shame. I had no real concept of what it was. And I remember my second wife early in our marriage, she was reading all kinds of self-help books and she was reading like I remember one time we're in bed and she's reading John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. And she goes, oh, this is you. This is you. And I go, what? And she starts reading to me about this shame as this internalized, I'm not good enough. I don't love myself. I'm defective. I go, I can't even relate to that. I said, that sounds like you. You're the one that hates yourself. You're the one that doesn't like anything about yourself. And she goes, no, that's you. Now, not only could I not see how it related to me as a person, I'm not sure I even understood the concept of it. And again, I'm not an unintelligent person, and I was already pretty educated at that time. And so it took me a while to really come to grasp what is this thing called toxic shame. And when people at times comment and say, Robert, No More Mr. Nice Guy really gives such a clear description of toxic shame. I thought, well, good, because before I wrote it, I had no fucking clue what toxic shame was. But toxic shame is an internalized emotional belief, again, that I'm not good enough or I'm unlovable. Now, I say emotional belief because that's really important dynamic. Because for children, when we have uncomfortable or painful experiences early in life, could be in utero, could be our first few weeks of life, first few months, first few years, the information we internalize about ourself and the world is all internalized emotionally, not in words, not even in visual imagery. Okay. So, and it gets stored up in a really primitive part of our brain. If this is prefrontal cortex, front of the brain, and this is brainstem. Down on the brainstem is part of the brain called the amygdala. Probably most of us have heard of it. It manages survival. It manages heart rate, respiration. It's the part that activates our fight, flight, freeze, our sympathetic nervous system. It's all about survival. And it is one of the oldest, most primitive parts of the human brain. Prefrontal cortex, reasoning part, that developed a lot later in our human evolution. And so this amygdala is all about survival. Okay. And the theory is that it stores up emotional memory. And so, for example, when any child has an uncomfortable or painful experience, again, this could be just a few weeks old, few months old. Maybe you're hungry and you don't get fed. You're cold and you don't get wrapped up. You're lonely and nobody comes to bond and connect with you and create healthy attachment. Maybe you poop in your diaper and nobody changes you. Your parents are fighting. Your parent shakes you or yells or has that angry face. All of those things create an emotional reaction for the child. Now they don't sit there and think, "Oh, I'm bad," or "I caused this to happen." But emotionally, that's what gets internalized. It's these traumas trigger this sense of, "I caused that, there's something wrong with me." Again, it's not words, it's emotion. That's why this is such a tricky dynamic. And that gets stored up in a very primitive part of our brain that runs all the rest of our brain. All the information, like, sight, sound, smell, go to this lower primitive part of the brain before they go to the reasoning part of the brain. So it's the has the machine language that runs what the rest of the brain thinks, feels, says, and does. Okay. So what happens then is we go through childhood and in an adolescence. If we have inaccurately, like I said, it's inaccurate. If we inaccurately internalize these beliefs, I'm bad, I caused that, we will start finding evidence around us to support the belief I'm not good enough, or I'm bad, or I'm unlovable, or I've got to win people's approval. They won't like me just as I am. And usually we're not consciously aware we're doing that. Now, here's the thing, I'd say probably everybody, not even almost everybody does this. Everybody inaccurately internalizes emotional beliefs in their amygdala that I'm bad. Now, everybody, though, deals with it in their own unique way. You might have two children in the same family dealing with similar internalized beliefs, and one of them becomes, we'll just say, a nice guy, the nice boy, who goes along to gets along, who doesn't rock the boat, who tries to become needless and wantless, who tries to never be a moment's problem because they don't want to draw negative attention. They may have a sibling, a brother or a sister that becomes oppositionally defiant, where they push back on everything. They'll cut off their nose to spite their face. If they're 14-year-old girl and the family values sexual purity, they'll be fucking every 21-year-old loser in the neighborhood. Or if education is highly valued, they'll drop out at 14. They'll do the opposite just because that's their way of managing this sense of not being good enough. So it can show up in different ways. It might show up in people being perfectionistic. It might show up in people having social anxiety. It might show up in people never trying or taking a risk or getting out of their comfort zone. It might show up in people thinking they have to have constant approval and success to be valued. It can show up in all kinds of ways. And nice guy syndrome is just one category of the way that people are trying to manage and deal with an inner sense of I'm not good enough or okay enough. And again, we do it by trying to become what we think people want us to be and hiding anything that might get us a negative reaction.
Do you think the nice guy generally has an anxious disposition? Like in reference to the attachment styles, are they mostly in the anxious category?
Well, my personal read on attachment theory, attachment issues is that unless you have healthy attachment, which in the book Attachment they say maybe 50%, maybe because the line of business I'm in, I'm a therapist and I work with people and with problems in their relationship. I don't know where they got the statistic of 50% of people have healthy attachment style.
Overestimate?
I'd say maybe 10%, yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I think all the rest, the other 90%, I'm just pulling these numbers out of my ass, but it's just based on my experience. And I would say the other 90% all have anxious attachment. And anxious attachment can show up in different ways. It can show up in clinging, infusing, and being afraid of being abandoned. But anxious attachment, I think, can also show up in having walls and keeping people away from you and not letting them get too close. So I think they're all anxious attachment. Now,
So you think avoidant is like a subcategory of anxious attachment?
yeah, that's my personal opinion. Now, I don't necessarily want to debate it with people that are experts on the subject, but I've shared that opinion with other people that are experts, and nobody's called me out or said they disagree. So let's assume it's all anxious attachment. And when I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, it took me 6 or 7 years to write it. I was working on myself as a nice guy. I was in therapy. I was in a men's group. I was a therapist, so I was working with a lot of men that identified as nice guys. I'd started some No More Mr. Nice Guy men's groups where I was working, and I didn't set out to write a book. I was just writing chapters to give to my clients to help them understand this dynamic that I was calling nice guy syndrome. Over time, people said, Robert, you should write a book. It could be a bestseller. You could go on Oprah. And never been on Oprah, but the book did become a bestseller, which is great. And but and so as I was writing the book, the primary basis the primary dynamic I was really focused on in the evolution of nice guy syndrome. Where did it come from? Was shame. That it was that sense of I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm unlovable that drove nice guy syndrome. Now, so that was and so if you read No More Mr. Nice Guy, you'll see that as a core dynamic. And as I was really coming to the conclusion of completing the book and then going out and trying to get it published, which took 3 years, I began to realize that anxiety played a big role in it as well. So I think they go hand in hand. I think they're kind of twin pillars of nice guy syndrome. Because as I was leading groups at this time, at 3, 4, 5 men's groups a week, what I started noticing is that almost in every group, at least once a week or so, one of the guys would say, "Robert, can we talk about self-soothing again?" So I came to really realize that for nice guys, anxiety was a big piece of it. And I do think a lot of nice guy syndrome does come out of our attachment issues in childhood. And that triggers a lot of anxiety, and especially in attachment as adults. And if you notice in No More Mr. Nice Guy, other than the last chapter of the book, it's mostly about nice guy syndrome in a relationship. The very last chapter of the book, actually, I ended up writing that chapter after I got an agent, and he said, you really should add more like about just life in general, work and career. And I said, well, I was thinking that might be another book. And he goes, I think you should have a chapter on that. So that got added after. So, but the most of it was about relationship because the shame and the anxiety tend to show up the most in our interpersonal relationships. So, yes, to answer your question, I think anxiety is a big part of it to where I'll often say that everything a nice guy does is trying to manage his anxiety, not wanting anybody upset with him, not wanting to risk failure, not wanting to look foolish, not wanting to get rejected, not wanting to make a mistake. And even to the degree where a lot of nice guys have a hard time just even talking to a woman that they're attracted to because their anxiety is so strong. And unfortunately, that anxiety tends to drive people away because anxiety is contagious. That's built into our nervous system as humans, as tribe pack animals. So if we are riddled with anxiety, when we get around other people, they'll feel our anxiety and they may not know why, but they'll not want to be that close to us because when they get close to us, they don't feel good. They feel anxious. And so that causes a lot of nice guys to think that they're not lovable or they're not attractive to women or people don't want to be close to them, mainly because of their unprocessed anxiety that gets transferred to other people around them. And then other people are kind of like this with them. And the nice guy doesn't realize that's one of the things that are happening. It's not because people don't like him or think he's a bad person. It's just his unresolved anxiety feels bad to other people.
How does the process of the nice guy relate to this individuation process proposed by Carl Jung? Have you heard of that and seen how they reflect on each other?
You know, I've bumped into Carl Jung's stuff quite a bit. I mean, I like it. It's out there, but I can't say that I've done a deep dive or that I'm Jungian. But the idea around differentiation and individuation, I think, is a really important theme, and I've come to that theme through other models that perhaps are similar because in in most of our family and cultural systems, we have something that's called emotional fusion. And that is the way I define emotional fusion is you belong to me, therefore you should. You're my son and you belong to me, therefore you should think like I think or feel like I feel or be there when I want you to be there. Or in relationship, it shows up, you're my girlfriend, therefore you should want to have sex with me when I want to. Or you're my boyfriend, therefore you should listen to me talk about all my dipshit problems that bother me all the time. You can tell where I lean on that of listening to women talk about their problems. Um, but it's this ownership mentality and even it shows up in what we traditionally call, monogamous relationships. And that is, okay, you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, you're my husband, you're my wife, you're my partner. You should never notice anybody else. You shouldn't have sexual desire for anybody else. And not only does your sexuality belong to me, so does everything, every other part of you. If you've made a commitment to me to be sexually monogamous, I have control of your whole life. And I mean, that sounds ridiculous to say it, but it's not that unusual in relationship where partners have to check in with their partner. Is it okay if I go hang out with my friends? Is it okay if I buy myself this? Is it okay if I, watch this TV show? Because we've given away that sense of individuation. So I believe differentiation, individuation, whatever we want to call it, is essential for people to live fully functioning lives. Otherwise, we stay caught up in codependent, fused relationships of thinking, well, I have to do it the way other people want me to do. I have to think like they think, feel like they feel, want what they want, and not only do I need to call my mother every Sunday to feel like a good son, I should want to call my mother every Sunday so I can feel like a good son. That's fusion.
Mm.
And most of culture, Eastern culture especially, is really built around it. I've worked with any number of men from India, Pakistan, less from China, but especially India. If these guys are educated enough to be either in America, Europe, or talking to me, they came from family systems in India where the parents controlled them since they were little boys. You will get these kind of grades. You'll go to this prestigious institution. You'll go to Harvard, MIT, Stanford. You'll get a job with a prestigious institution. You'll either be a doctor or an engineer. You'll marry the woman that we either find for you to marry or we approve of. And when we're ready to retire at 45 years old, you'll take care of us. That is fusion. And I've worked with so many Eastern men, Asian men, who, even though they've maybe gotten educated in America or Europe, they've seen more open Western standards around like relationship, family dynamic, they feel like they're doing the worst possible thing if they don't follow the family rules, if they don't follow that Indian culture. So that's just how fusion just robs people of their individual identity and says, you have to be like us. So I'm a big fan of differentiating. Unfortunately, when we're growing up as little children, differentiation usually isn't an option. Most parents want their children to basically behave, to do what they want them to do. And I don't know about in Australia, but in a lot of places of the world, when a child reaches about 24 months of age, 2 years old, there's a phase they go through where they start saying, myself, no, I don't want to. And in most cultures, there's actually a term for it. I don't know if that's true in Australia, but in America, we call that the terrible twos. That oh, this child is rebelling. They're terrible when they hit two. That shows you what we think about differentiation. It's terrible. Why? Because the little person wants what they want, but it's not what the big person wants. No, I'm going to tell you what shoes you're going to wear. I'm going to tell you what clothes you're going to wear. I'm going to tell you what food you're going to eat. So even at 2 years old, when a child goes through a natural developmental phase of beginning to identify as a separate self from parent and saying, I want, I don't want, no, myself, we consider that bad. We consider it terrible. So basically, children basically have two options to deal with the fusion in their families. One is they go underground, which a lot of nice guys do. We just hide. We go along to get along. We hide our needs, our wants. We ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And so everything gets tucked underground, trying to be good and not rock the boat. Or the other reaction children have is that oppositional defiant that I mentioned earlier. They push back on everything. They rebel against everything. They cut off their nose to spite their face. Now, I've noticed some nice guys relate to having been that way at a young age. And then at some age, they either got sober, went in the military, got married, had a kid, found Jesus, whatever, and decided, oh, I got to quit doing that. I got to become more like the nice guy over here and go along to get along. Now, they're still operating, both of them, from a place of shame. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it right. I'm going to get in trouble if I exert myself, be assertive. And so all of them are still dealing with the effects of fusion, and both of them are struggling to be a differentiated self. My definition of differentiation is the ability to ask yourself, what do I want? And then do it. Now, most people either don't ask themselves what they want, or if they do, they don't follow through and do it. Now, follow through and do it, even when the anxiety between your ears says, I'm going to get in trouble, or I might fail, or I might be bad, or the people around you, whether it's family, culture, society, saying, you can't do it that way. You can't do that. That's wrong. That's bad. You'll hurt somebody. You'll make somebody mad. So differentiation is that ability to ask yourself, what do I want? And then do it, even when we feel resistance. And that's to me the only way to have true authenticity and true integrity.
Before we continue, I want to share something that has genuinely transformed my life. Now, I've spent years studying psychology and interviewing expert guests, but I've never found anything as effective as the DiMartini method. Now, most frameworks just teach you how to manage your feelings, but this is specialized in dissolving the heavy emotional charges that keep you stuck. It's about stripping away the baggage, the resentment, the heartbreak, the anger, so you can actually reclaim your life and move forward with clarity and inspiration. Mitchell Vickridge at Nirvana Health is a specialist in this process. He has created a specialized product that simplifies the DiMartini method so you can apply it to yourself and start regaining control immediately. For those who want to go deeper, he also offers professional one-on-one coaching and facilitation. If you want to stop being held hostage by your past and start mastering it, go check out the link in the show notes to get 10% off all his services and products. It's the most powerful tool I've ever used to empower all areas of my life. Thank you, and let's get back to the show. Yeah, it seems like there's a blurring of the nice guy's boundaries, do you think they're more susceptible to be manipulated by a narcissist?
Let's see. Have I ever been there? Oh yeah, I have. Um, I I thought about writing a book after the end of my second marriage with a woman who, after we were divorced, I really came to see that she was borderline personality, and I thought about calling it something like "Nice Guys and Borderlines: The Match Made in Heaven slash Hell," um, because narcissists and borderline personality types. And I get these terms are way overused on the internet and social media. Everybody is like an amateur psychologist now. Everybody's ex is either a borderline, a narcissist, or a sociopath, right? You know, everybody, if they got broken up with, they're a narcissist. But there are indeed a few narcissists out there. I don't think there's that many, actually. I think the president of the United States of America is a true, genuine narcissist. There aren't many like him. There are a few, but not many. I think there are probably quite a few borderlines out there, but I don't really think there's near as many narcissists as social media would make you believe that there are. So not only do our borderlines and narcissists tend to be attracted to nice guys because they can manipulate them, because we nice guys don't tend to have very clear boundaries. I was in my 30s in my second marriage and already had a doctorate in marriage and family therapy before I ever was introduced to the idea of boundaries. Right? Went to a therapy session, and the very first therapist session I had, the woman walked me through boundaries. I'd never heard of them. And I don't know if she did that with every client that came to her, or she could tell when I walked in her door, he needs the boundary exercise. So I had no ideas what boundaries were. If you have no ideas what boundaries are, you will let manipulative people manipulate you and use you and take advantage of you. Now, I'm not saying that we nice guys are victims or we need to blame other people. We need to take accountability. But yeah, we are easy prey. There's no doubt about that. And in my years as a marriage therapist, I did see any number of men who were indeed nice guys who were in relationships with broken women who had extreme difficulty managing their emotions, angry one minute, mad, just up and down, who alternated between loving the guy and hating him, who threatened to leave constantly, um, who withheld sex. So I've seen that pattern a lot. It does show up a lot. And so for anybody, not just nice guys, anybody learning to set boundaries, I think is an essential step to be able to invite healthy people into our life. And I mean, everybody's got issues. So no matter who we invite in our life, boundaries are essential. Boundaries invite people into higher consciousness. It gives people incentive to behave well. And so, yes, learning to set boundaries is so essential to have the kind of life and relationships we want.
What do women think about nice guys?
I guess it depends on the woman. You know, say like when I'm traveling and maybe on an airplane talking to people, some person next to you. Well, what do you do? What do you do? That kind of thing. And when I tell women that I work with men, and they get really curious really fast. Oh, what do you do? What do you teach them? Women are really curious about that kind of stuff. And so when I talk about nice guys, and I can usually tell when I start describing a nice guy, kind of like maybe you and I started out in this conversation, I get one of two responses from women. One is kind of they're nodding their head like, yeah. And I go, okay, they know nice guys. They've either dated one, been married to one. Their brother's a nice guy. Their dad's a nice guy. I think maybe one of the last women a couple months ago, I was on an airplane talking to her about it. By the time we got done, she identified that her nice guy husband was in the back of the airplane and she was sitting in first class next to me. And she was like, I got to get a copy of your book to give to my husband. And I said, let me guess. Your husband, he was in tech, flies a lot, has a lot of frequent flyer miles. He booked this flight for you and him together. There was only one seat left for an upgrade, and he gave it to you while he sat in the back. And she goes, "Mhm. How did you know?" And I said, "Because I know that seat was empty when I last looked at it before I boarded the plane. So I knew it was an upgrade. And since your husband was on the plane and he travels for his business, I knew that he'd upgraded you, not him, which is fine. I'd do the same thing for my wife." So she knew. I mean, she knew exactly. She goes, "My husband needs your book." So there's one response I'll see with women. Another response, I'll start talking about nice guys, and they'll look at me real puzzled like, and they'll basically say, "You mean there's men like that out there?" And I said, "Well, you've either dated some really healthy men, which again, I think that's probably in the majority. I'll put that down in the 10% of healthy attachment style, or you're attracted to the jerks." And they'll go, "Yeah, the latter." I'm attracted to the jerks. The nice guys aren't even on their radar. They don't even notice them. The nice guys are so passive and pleasing and uninteresting and boring that certain categories of women don't even know they exist, right? Now, one pattern I have seen, and I know this was probably true for my ex-wife and for other patterns I've seen. Some women, especially going back to kind of the borderline type, can bounce between being attracted to the jerks and getting used and abused by the jerks, and then finding a nice guy that, oh, finally, here's a guy who's not going to steal money from me or cheat on me with my best friend. But then they're so boring and so uninteresting and such doormats that now all of a sudden they get attracted back to the jerks again. And I've known some women that just kind of bounce between the two,
Mm.
ping pong between the two. Now, when we published No More Mr. Nice Guy, again, almost 25 years ago, I think my publisher hoped there would be kind of a backlash from women, maybe kind of some kind of feminist outrage at this book. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Who would write a book teaching men to be not nice? There's already enough not nice men out there. And it never happened. In 25 years, I maybe have gotten 6 emails from women that were unhappy with me. And I could tell none of them had actually read the book. And most of them, the majority of them, were unhappy with me because they said their boyfriend or husband had read my book and left them. And so it's my fault. And the emails they sent me were like this long. And I'm thinking about the guy, run, keep running, don't look back, keep going. There's a good reason why you left. So the the great majority of messages, emails that I get from women is thanking me for my book, saying they could see themselves in it, they could see their husband in it, it saved their marriage, they could see an ex in it. A lot of men tell me when they start working with me, "Oh yeah, my ex-girlfriend, my ex-wife gave me a copy of the book. After we'd broken up, she told me about the book." So in general, women really like the fact that I'm teaching men to be authentic, to be assertive, to have boundaries, to be passionate, to have a productive, passionate life, and to be able to invite a woman into that. So in general, women seem to really like the book. Again, I've never had any kind of big negative feminine blowback to it.
Why do women like the bad guys? Is it just because they can say no and they have their own boundaries?
No, probably not. That's probably not why they like them because I don't know that that's necessarily a characteristic of the bad boys, the jerks, the assholes. Um, you know, This is a perplexing issue for nice guys because we nice guys, probably most of us have heard that women say, "I want a nice guy," right? My mother told me as a child, as a little boy, she was raising me and my brother to be different from our father. So I was brought up to be a nice guy. I believe that's what women wanted. It's what they were attracted to. It's what they would desire. Until I got through adolescence and into college and found out, oh, just me being a nice guy didn't turn them on, didn't make them approach me or want me. I am really, again, I felt like I had to seduce them with nice guy seduction, try to be smart, try to impress them, listen to them talk about their problems, fix some problem for them, be different than the other men. And and I thought that should work. It was a covert contract. Um, and it does with some women. I mean, with some women it worked. I mean, it got me married twice, so apparently there were a couple women out there that liked me being the nice guy until they were with me long enough. They didn't like the fact that I was dishonest and passive aggressive and wouldn't finish the things I started or keep my word. And um, and couldn't be trusted in various ways. So they can find out, well, you're not such a nice guy after all. But to answer your question, my theory of what turns women on, and this is I've got a whole course on this, and actually I'm working on a book on it called I call it positive emotional tension. And that is that women need to experience emotional tension to be attracted to a man, aroused by him, and stay connected to him over time. I heard David Data say years ago in a workshop I was at. He said, for the feminine, drama is foreplay. I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. I seem to be attracted to women who love to fight, and I'm not a fighter. I can fight, but I've had to learn how to do it. But for women, drama is foreplay. They if you watch the chick flicks, if you watch feminine female oriented drama, if you read the books written for women, the romance novels, and I read one or two a year. I just finished one not too long ago. I'll read a romance novel or two a year just to remind me of what's going on inside women's head, of that constant internal tension of wanting this guy that she identifies as being strong and sexy, but she also usually thinks he's a jerk or he's this or that. And then, finally he wins her over and she finds out, oh, he's actually true, a tender guy with lots of love, but he can get the job done when it needs to be done. Right. The formula is the same in every one of the books, but they're all about emotional tension. Now, so if a woman needs emotional tension, it could be the emotional tension of just being physically attracted to a guy. It could be seeing that he's confident in his own skin. It could be that, he stands up for himself. It could be that he doesn't take shit off of anybody. I mean, anything can trigger. It could be he knows how to flirt well, right? That triggers an emotional tension that triggers arousal for women. They can't manufacture that arousal, and they can't manufacture it with a nice guy because a nice guy doesn't trigger the emotional tension for them. In fact, nice guys go out of their way to either never create emotional tension or to kill it when it happens. I'll give you an example. Just a message thread this morning in a mentorship group that I lead. And there's a guy that's been in there for a while, and he keeps getting back into this, falling into nice guy patterns with women. He's 50, and he tries to be nice and treat them well and impress them. And they always things start out well, and then after about 3 dates, the women all disappear. And he's working on, he teaches tantric sex, and he posted this morning. He says, I'm kind of hesitant to post this because I don't want to be judged, but I've seen this woman, we've seen 8 times now. Things are going well. Seen her 3 times a week. We've been talking a lot, been talking about the tantric sex. She likes, those ideas and all. And somebody said, have you fucked her yet? Oh no, but she likes the dark sexuality that I talked to her about. And I said, don't use words, show her. Talk less, fuck more. And this woman will lose interest in him if he keeps on that path again. He's not doing anything to create emotional tension. He's being way too nice. And again, being nice doesn't mean you're a jerk or a dick or an asshole or you fuck women over. It does mean you are authentic and you're real. And see, this guy was saying, I'm afraid if I let her know that I'm not ready to date one woman yet and I'm dating multiple women, I'm afraid that I'll lose her and she'll go away. And I go, that's just, again, you trying to be too nice, trying not to have a woman have a negative reaction, and she will go away because there's nothing. You dating other women will actually create emotional tension for her. She'll all of a sudden now feel a sense of competition, and she'll want to be the one that you choose over these other women, because one aspect of the feminine is every woman's in competition with every other woman, if they're straight, for the attention of the man, right? It's built into them from evolution. And so the nice guy trying to go along, get along, not rock the boat, be nice, be different than the jerks, not see multiple women at the same time, kills all the emotional tension. And then if the woman does create emotional tension, which I tend to call negative emotional tension, by accusing him of something or ghosting him or, going off on him or flirting with his best friend in public, they create the negative emotional tension. The nice guy will try to extinguish that. I call it putting the wet stuff on the red stuff. There's a fire. Let's get it out. Let's get everything back to smooth and copacetic. Men, and especially nice guys, tend to hate emotional tension. Even our sporting events that have emotional tension all have a clock on them. They have a certain time limit. We can't take too long of emotional tension. We need an escape from it. So I'm not sure. I mean, there are some women out there who are really badly wounded, and they are attracted to men who treat them badly. Okay, but that's a whole different category. Wounded women attracted to men who treat them badly because it feels normal to them, right? It's what they understand. But in terms of just an average healthy woman, even that 10% with healthy attachment style, they want to feel something. They want to feel it down there. They want to feel it up here. They want to feel something that, he loves me, he loves me not. Oh, he's hot. What's he thinking? What's he doing? When's he going to hug me? When's he going to kiss me? When's he going to take my clothes off? They're in that constant state of emotional tension. And the guy's just going, what do I have to do to get her to like me? How do I make sure I don't piss her off? How do I not drive her? And we do drive them away because out of boredom. So I'm not sure that in general the women really want the bad boys, but the bad boys create emotional tension. They know they shouldn't be with him. They know he's not available. They know he's got a girlfriend. They know that, he fucks around. They know all that, but because it creates emotional tension, it turns them on. And in comparison to the nice guy, where there is no turn on and they can't manufacture it, they go with the impulse. Now, it may keep fucking their life up, but they go with the impulse because they want to feel something. And they'd love to be in love with a nice guy, but they don't feel anything.
Mm. It does make sense from an evolutionary psychology perspective when this quote unquote bad guy can say no, because if the nice guy says yes to every one of her needs, then I guess she assumes that the nice guy will say yes to everyone else's needs, and there's no sort of respect on his word. Like his word doesn't really mean much if he can't say no. So yeah, someone once told me no is the second most or the most powerful word in the
Yeah,
dictionary.
or that knows a complete sentence. My ex-wife, who again, I lovingly say she was crazy, um, and I don't think she'd argue with me about that. Um, she used to say to me, "If you can't even stand up to me, how do I know you'll ever stand up for me?" Right? There's that evolutionary thing. And she would just say, "I'm just a little girl making noise." And she goes, "When you get all like this, like, don't be mad, don't be mad." She goes, "How am I supposed to be turned on by you? You're acting like a little boy. You're afraid of me being upset." And she said, I'm just a little girl making noise." So yeah, I think that whole evolutionary thing of of course, women are going to be attracted to a strong person, a person who's capable of standing up to them, of providing and protecting. But again, because I've often said I have empathy for women because in most places they have two choices of men. It's either the asshole jerk, the one who's going to treat them like shit, or the wussy doormat, the one that's just going to let them walk all over them. This one's a turn on. This one isn't, but this one is the one that seems like the best option, for a long-term relationship and raising kids. But some say the statistics are pretty high that when they're ovulating, then they go fuck this guy, even though they're married to this guy. So it's that whole dynamic around, what creates emotional tension. Now, I think a good guy, we don't have to be crazy like the bad boys in order to create emotional tension with women. I think just as simple as setting the tone and taking the lead. I remember when I started telling women, wait for me, I'll open your door, is that they all really liked it. They really liked that I was paying that kind of attention, that I was telling them what to do, right? I've only had one woman in my whole life that ever resisted that. And within 48 hours, she wanted to fuck me. And because I didn't give in, I kept saying, no, if you hang out with me, I'm going to open your door. And even though she kept, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want anybody to control me. I don't want to control you either. But if you hang out with me, I'm going to open your door. Within 48 hours, she was wanting to fuck me. So it's that power of emotional tension. She knew I was strong enough to be her man. I wasn't going to back down. And I wasn't trying to control her either. I was just setting the tone of what works for me. And if she wants to hang out with me, this is the way it rolls. And so it's not really that hard to create emotional tension. But with that said, I tell men it's actually very powerful masculine initiation. If we can learn to hold our frame with a woman who's sad, who's angry, who's threatening us, if we can hold our frame, that's powerful masculine initiation. And It takes work and it takes practice, and I think it takes a good support system.
Let's rehabilitate the nice guy. So, what should he do to start taking steps to become this? Apparently, there's, as we said, the two camps of common men. There's the quote unquote bad guy, then there's the nice guy. What would you call the guy who's integrated?
We're going to call him the integrated male. Now, you know, there's no right term for it. When I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I sent the book off to a professional editor, and he gave me two really good pieces of feedback. One was, you've told the guys what not to be. Now you have to tell them what to do different. And I said, I'm a therapist. I can't tell people what to do. And he goes, it's a self-help book. Tell people what to do. So all the breaking free activities came from that, of me giving, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. The other thing is he said, okay, you're telling guys don't be a nice guy. Well, what are they going to be? And so I kind of, brainstorm the ideas that conscious male, authentic male, integrated man, whatever, might call it embodied man, divine man, whatever. We could come up with any name. But to me, I liked integrated because it was about taking all aspects of ourselves, our darkness, our lightness, and bringing them all together for we look at all of that and let the world see all of that and know that. See, the nice guy thinks I got to hide the dark if I'm going to be loved. The truth of it is, the more I bring my dark out into the open and I get comfortable with it and let it be seen, the more attractive I am, the more friends I have, the more guys respect me, the more women want to get with me. And so there's that integration of all aspects of ourselves and letting the world see all aspects of ourselves, the good, the bad, the dark, the light, the ugly, the warts, let the world see that. But to do that, to get integrated, I start out early in No More Mr. Nice Guy and repeat it frequently. Don't try to do this alone. We didn't become nice guys in social isolation. We're not going to break free. And part of the nice guy thinking is, well, I don't want anybody I don't want to dive into this stuff. I don't want anybody else to see it. I'll just read the book. I'll just work on it myself. I'll do the breaking free activities myself. That's a big nice guy mistake. That's like Einstein said, that the thinking that got us into this is not going to get us out of it. So I say find safe people. This was especially true for releasing our toxic shame because I began my nice guy recovery in a 12-step group for sex addicts. My then wife said, "You're a sex addict." So I went to this 12-step group, quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict. But for the first time in my life, I just started revealing things about me I never told anybody. And, the only reaction I get was, "Thank you for sharing, Robert." I mean, nobody was, like, "Oh, you're terrible." And so I kept going back just to reveal things. And I got in with a therapist, got into a men's group that I was in for 5 or 6 years. I still have a men's group where these guys know everything about me. And if there's something I don't want them to know, I tell them. I tell them because that shame is toxic. It's a killer. And the more I get my shame out there, the more integrated I am, and people can just see me and be attracted to me just as I am. So find safe people. Could be a coach, could be a therapist, could be a 12-step group, could be a minister, could be a men's group. Probably it's not your girlfriend, probably not your wife, probably not your mother, probably not your sister. Those are not usually good, safe people because you're not going to reveal your full self to them, and they have an investment in you kind of being just how you are. So find safe people. Men's groups are great. And luckily, there's so many out there now. When I began my recovery 30 plus years ago, there wasn't much there. Now, the internet's filled with men's groups, men's programs, men's podcasts, which is great. It's great. There's so many resources. So go find a men's group, a men's program. Go find the safe people. And not only do you reveal your shame, you get more accurate feedback. No, you're not bad. That doesn't make you a bad person. And if you're in a group with other men who are also revealing themselves, you go, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that thinks like that. I don't think he's a bad guy for that. Why am I going to think I'm a bad guy for that? So go find those safe people and then start working on releasing your shame, getting tools for soothing your anxiety. Start practicing being honest and authentic and transparent. Learn to set boundaries, get support to set boundaries because they can be pretty challenging for nice guys. Learn to be assertive, learn to ask for what you want, learn to surround yourself with people who want to help meet your needs, learn to give to yourself. So these are, a lot of the basic tools, but I beyond a shadow of a doubt, It begins by having safe men in our life that we can be vulnerable with, reveal ourselves with, and go deep with, as they do the same thing with us as well.
So how do we make sure that the nice guy doesn't just flip over and become the bad guy? How do we make sure that he actually integrates and stops actually doing kind acts because he thinks, "Oh, that's nice. I shouldn't do that." Like, how does he actually discern between what action to take?
Well, you know, two responses I tend to get when guys like discover that they're nice guys. Maybe they read my book or see some interviews. Two responses. Um, One is basically, well, okay, I'll just do the opposite. And one of the things, a phrase I heard in 12 Steps a long time ago is the opposite of crazy is still crazy. So I'll just be the opposite of my father. Well, that still kind of makes dad the basis of what you're becoming. And maybe dad wasn't all terrible. Maybe you're more like your dad than different from him. And so being the opposite of dad is not a good model. Okay. I was writing a blog or something a couple years ago, and I used that phrase, the opposite of crazy is still crazy. So I thought, well, I want to attribute whoever that phrase said it. So I Googled who said the opposite of crazy is still crazy, and the answer came up. Dr. Robert Glover, the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, said the opposite of crazy is still crazy. Well, I did not invent the term, but I like it. So one is I'll be totally different, right? I'll become the asshole jerk, but that's not the answer. The other thing that guys will usually say is, well, I get that being a nice guy isn't serving me, but I don't want to become a jerk. So I want to find the midpoint, the balance. And I go, I hate the word balance. And I said, I don't know what the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. So I'm going to be just a little bit less toxically nice or a little bit less toxically, bad. So I think both the nice guy and the asshole jerk are on the same emotional continuum. There's just nice guys at this end, jerks at this end. They're both in a state of sympathetic nervous system, of fight, flight, freeze. The nice guy deals with his anxiety and triggers by being he's the freezer and the fleer, right? And trying to manage people and situations to manage his anxiety. And fawn often gets added to that list. Oh, I'll try to be good and make everybody happy. The jerk is the fighter in terms of the fight, flight, freeze. And he gets aggressive with people and situations to try to manage his anxiety. So just becoming one or more or less of the other doesn't serve a purpose. You're still in sympathetic nervous system, survival. What we have to do is we have to learn to rise above. I think that comes from having those safe places to release our shame, learning to soothe our anxiety rather than trying to manage people and situations, learning to be differentiated, where we ask ourselves, what do I want? What's important to me? And follow through, where we do create connection with other healthy men who are on a path of leveling up and who can support us and hold us accountable instead of us doing it in isolation, where we do learn to set boundaries. All of these are a different level of interacting. They're not just becoming more or less of one of these. So that integrated male is releasing his shame, learning to soothe his anxiety, set boundaries, ask for what he wants, surround himself with people who want to help him get his needs met, being assertive, setting boundaries, being connected. It's just a whole different ballpark. It looks different. It puts the recovering nice guy in that 10% that we've been talking about that can actually show up for a relationship, show up to be available, and be equally okay if he's not in a relationship because
Mm.
he's okay. He's comfortable in his own skin.
It's interesting with the nice guy because he has obviously the shame around his sexuality and his needs, but then he also has a lot of moral pride for, his manipulative actions, which are trying to validate him. So I almost find it like I always treat it as like collapsing the shame and the pride into the integration because it's part of this DeMartini method, but you can't have shame without pride and you can't have pride without shame. So,
That's I never heard that exactly put that way, but I like that. Yeah, I'll go back to that guy that I was talking about texting in my mentorship group, and it's funny that this piece just came up because this guy's been processing this dynamic for months, and somebody posted, just fuck her. She wants to fuck you. Just fuck her. And this guy posts back, "Oh, the way I was raised, you don't fuck somebody until you're in a relationship." And I was thinking, yeah, you're probably raised where you don't say fuck either. But that's what I wasn't going to go down that route. But and like, oh, I have to get into a relationship with a woman before I fuck her. And even as I read that, I thought he probably has always worn that as a sense of pride. I'm the good guy that doesn't fuck women outside a relationship. I get in relationship with them first because that's the good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's what women truly value. But it's not. I mean, it's actually not what I found that women value. When I started dating in my late 40s and early 50s, after I really worked on a lot of my nice guy issues and was coming to understand things like positive emotional tension, women were getting naked with me on first and second dates without me even. In fact, I haven't tried to get a woman naked in 25 years, and I've had plenty of sex. And women were propositioning me and coming on to me, and I'm thinking, what planet have I landed on? Well, what had happened is I'd gotten integrated, right, and I'd released a lot of my sexual shame. I'd made a commitment I was going to say yes to every sexual opportunity that presented itself, and a lot did, and I had a lot of fun. And I let go of that badge, that pride that, "Oh, I'm different than the other bad men. I treat women well. I'm this, I'm that." And the women didn't give a fuck about that badge of pride that I wore, that I'm different from my dad. I'm different than those bad men. I'm grown up the way my mom wanted me to be. That's not a turn on for women. So I think you're really right that shame and pride go hand in hand, because pride is our way of compensating for not feeling good enough. Oh, look at me. I won this award, or I got this attention, or I did that. And so we get locked into trying to get those things rather than us just being ourselves. And people either like us or they don't. And either way, it's okay.
So you've been in long-term marriages and then also had a single life. What do you think young men should know about, I guess, the availability of other women when they release this sexual shame versus committing to one person?
You know, I don't know there's a right way to do this. I think if you approach relationships consciously, I often say they're powerful personal growth machines. I think doing monogamy consciously is a challenge because we're not wired for it, which that makes it all the more powerful of a process to operate in. Now, not doing monogamy because our parents told us to, or our religion told us to, or that we think the woman expects it, but choosing monogamy. I've chosen to be monogamous to my wife. We've been married 9 years now. And I choose to be monogamous. But another piece I had to work on, going back to the emotional fusion, is I have this tendency, once I get in a relationship with a woman, it's like I put a handcuff on my wrist and put the other handcuff on her wrist and give her the key and resent her for my loss of freedom. So for several years now, I've been very conscious about being sexually monogamous to my wife, keeping all of my sexual energy in that relationship, but not giving away any other personal freedoms. I still travel the world. I still do what I want. I still go to the gym. I still, I live life on my terms. Now, we discuss things. I don't just say I'm going to go do this, but but I don't give away any of my freedoms. I used to. Okay, so monogamy can be quite a growth producing challenge. The other side of that, non-monogamy, whether we call it open, being polyamorous, whatever we want to call it, because we live in a culture that at least traditionally has stressed monogamy, it can be challenging. And in fact, I've found that being polyamorous is probably more emotionally challenging than being monogamous. Most of the people I know that are in open relationships, and just to throw a little twist in there, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, my wife and I opened up her side of the relationship, because she's younger than me and a lot more sexual than me and always has been. And she likes men and women both. And so I can't give her all of that. I said, well, you shouldn't have to tamp down who you are sexually just to match who I am sexually. And so her side of the relationship's been open for 4 years. And she's currently in a place where she says, I don't want to be with anybody else but you. And she's been with other people. And it was challenging. there were a lot of challenges to how to make that work. And she's always been completely honest and transparent with me about everything, which kind of freaks out the people that she's
Mm.
been with. They go, "You tell your husband everything?" She goes, "Yeah, yeah, he knows everything." And that was how we built it, is that it would be a completely open process between us. So I'm monogamous, she's open, and it's challenging either way you go with it. Now, I just turned 70, and so my sex drive's been on the wane for quite some time. So being monogamous isn't quite as challenging as it was when I was 35.
Yeah.
But it's still a conscious decision of where I put my emotional energy. Because women still flirt with me, still come on with me. The gym yesterday morning with my wife. My wife was pissed about this woman who was doing everything under the sun to get my attention while I'm working out. And I don't think she could have been over 22. And it happens all the time. And so again, there's just that dynamic. I think because I'm comfortable in my own skin, I'm very attractive to the feminine. And my wife points out women that are coming on to me all the time. So whether we're being monogamous or open, I'm a big fan of doing it consciously, doing it transparently, having resources, having a relationship posse that you can talk to, that you get support from, that know what's going on with you. You don't try to do it alone, right? So either way you go, and then I know, Gen Z is a lot more open to both bisexuality as well as open relationships than my generation was. Nowadays, pretty much every young woman you talk to will claim to be bi, which doesn't surprise me. I think maybe women are fundamentally bi. But yeah, the whole, so many young people say, yeah, we're in an open relationship. Again, it's just people don't even blink an eye. People would have blinked an eye at that when I was young. So things have shifted a lot, but even with the shift, still think either way it's going to be challenging and require a lot of consciousness, which then can create a lot of personal growth. So again, I don't know that one's better than the other, one's superior than the other. Um, I think whichever one you go, make it a conscious decision. Because when I was in my quote integrated man whore phase after my second divorce, I was with a lot of different women. I slept with 4 different women in one weekend, and all of them knew I wasn't exclusive to them. And they all had various opinions about that, but they all still slept with me, knowing I wasn't monogamous. I reached a point after being in that state for a while where I thought, you know, I think I'd rather just have sex with one woman that I know her body, that we got an emotional connection, there's trust. I don't really need to say yes to every sexual opportunity now. But I went through that phase and I'm glad I did. And it served me and I grew. So I think either way we go, just make sure it's a conscious decision and that you're not just going along to get along and doing something that's really not what you want because you think your partner or prospective partners might want that.
Mm. How do you think the nice guys the nice guy syndrome is going to evolve in society? As you've obviously seen, I'm only quite young, but how do you think it's changing through social and cultural narratives?
I I've been watching it for 30 years, and I have kind of a worldwide, global, perch to watch it because I'm in communication with men all over the world. I'm talking to a guy in Perth, Australia, right now, and I'm in Mexico. In this year, I've been to the U.S., Mexico, Japan, Australia, Europe, working with men, and I see a worldwide men's movement happening out there that might not look like a worldwide men's movement. Yeah, I know there's the manosphere kind of thing, and a lot of stuff gets clumped into the manosphere. So I don't even know exactly what that is. But I do see something happening where a guy might decide I want to learn to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So he goes and joins the dojo and starts connecting with men. Or a guy's going through a divorce, so he goes through his church divorce support group. Or a guy, wants to deal with his addiction, so he goes to a 12-step group that they call them a stag group. It's just men in the 12-step group. Or a guy wants to learn how to pick up women, so he goes to a pickup boot camp and gets with a bunch of guys and goes out and starts, cruising for women. All of the cases is men maybe not realizing it unconsciously, but they're going and putting themselves in situations to connect with other men. We men are tribal. We need other men. We're at our best with other men. And most men, and most nice guys especially, tend to be pretty isolated. So it's that connecting with men. And then one guy said, "Man, have you read this book? Have you read No More Mr. Nice Guy? Have you read David Data? Or have you seen Stephen Bartlett? Or have you seen Chris Williamson? Or have you watched this? Or you're familiar with this?" And there's this cross pollination going on out there. Men connecting with men. Maybe they're grappling. Maybe they're talking about their addictions. Maybe they're crying about their divorce. Maybe they're picking up chicks, but they're with other men, and now they're sharing and they're getting real with each other and being vulnerable and sharing books and ideas and podcasts. And all of a sudden now, I mean, all that did not exist 30 years ago. When we basically had, Robert Bly's Iron John, and we went out in the woods and held a talking stick and beat a drum and said, "Oh, that was about it. That was all there was." Now there is so much out there. So even while I can say that probably in the last 30 years, I've seen the number of nice guys multiply, what I'm also seeing now is a number of resources to help nice guys, to help all men become authentic men, integrated men, level up, be the best version of themselves, have connection with other men. Those resources are multiplying as well. So I actually think it's easy to look at pendulum swings, that maybe we were over here and we swung this way and now we're going to swing back this way. Like I said, it's not a matter of swinging from one extreme. It's actually men rising up, right? Going, the things that I teach. And other men teach little different models than I do. It's okay. None of us have the right way to do it. But mainly, if we're getting men connected with other men in authentic ways and challenging ourselves, we're making the world a better place. And we're making a better place not only for ourselves, but for women and just for this planet in general. So I'm optimistic that I really see, while there's maybe more and more nice guys coming along, there's more and more tools and resources for recovering nice guys. And I'm excited about that.
Hmm. Any concluding thoughts? Anything you think with, to wrap this conversation up in a nice little bow? Anything important?
Well, I'll just bring back to something I've already said. Don't do it yourself. Go find a men's group, go find a men's coach, go find a men's program, go get in a 12-step group, go put yourself out there and reveal yourself to safe people. Don't do it alone. And I've been preaching that for 30 years, and I'll keep preaching it till the day I die, because I believe it to be the truth.
Yeah. Dr. Robert Glover, thanks for coming on the show. I'll link your book in the show notes below. It was definitely a timely book in my life and obviously changed millions of lives. So thank you for your work.
There you go. Thank you for the invitation. This has been great.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the episode. I hope you got a ton of value out of our guest today. Now, if you enjoyed that episode, don't forget to click the follow button on Spotify and also click the 3 dots and click rate show. Makes a massive difference in helping grow the show and bring on even bigger guests. And also, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It does make a massive difference. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.